It is Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's time for another First Thoughts and Initial Impressions Epic 7 video. This one will be on Lone Wolf Peira, the newest Moonlight 5-star that was just shown earlier this morning over on Stove. I'll also talk about Sez and Blooming Lytica's exclusive equipments at the end of the video. Speaking of video, there is none for this character. It is simply just this stove post. My assumption is because, well, we have maintenance coming up. The trailer is not ready, and Smogate and Super Creative would like to be the first ones to show their brand new Moonlight 5-star off to the community, as opposed to some data miner or leaker over on social media. So kudos to them for that. Again, though, I still would have liked to have seen a video. I would like it if they would get the videos out on time when they're actually announcing and showing off the character. And especially given the state of things from the past couple months, I really wanted to see a video here for Lone Wolf Peira. I would like to know if Jeannie Tirado is still reprising her role as Peira. Whether you know it or not, currently SAG-AFTRA is striking with the studio that supplies the English dub talent to Epic 7. We lost Flansvier a few months back to this same strike, right? The fact that they weren't willing to sign an interim agreement. Losing Jeannie would be a massive blow to this game's dub. As far as what I can tell from the 1-minute summary, the one voice line they gave us, it sounds like it's her. But again, no official confirmation. If anything changes when we actually get the video, you will definitely be hearing from me. Anyways, let's jump in and talk about the character's design first, and then we'll talk about the actual kit. So as you can see here is Lone Wolf Peira, a biker with the moniker of Lone Wolf, who was formerly the vice captain and mechanic of the biker gang Crimson Knight, but one event led to another, and now she operates independently. She's made it pretty clear that she loathes almost all things associated with Nada's biker thugs, but rumors have been circulating that if you don't keep up your bike's maintenance and happen to cross paths there, you'll wake up battered and bruised, but your bike will be as new as the day you got it. Very interesting character. I want to say, though, her concept art is just absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the most gorgeous looking characters that the Super Creative art team has put out to date. And that says a lot because the art team, 1000%, I think, and a lot of people will probably agree with me here, they carry this game. The character designs in Epic 7 are astounding, and this one is no different. I love seeing the concept art for characters because, you know, you get to see the character from all angles. You get to see all the finer details that you may or may not have noticed. And obviously this stuff is like a cosplayer's dream. You get to see the logos, right? You get to see even the bag, right? With all of her tools in it, right? How her necklace actually, like, she wears it. As you can see, it kind of goes literally through the sports bra, right? The fact that the earrings, the dangly part is on the back stud as opposed to the front. The detailing on the side of the hat over here. Hell, before I started recording this video for the first time ever, I noticed that she has a beauty mark on her, like, shoulder here. That makes me wonder, is that actually on the original Peira and we just don't know it? It's like one of those things where you just don't know it unless you see the concept art. Like Judge Kisei, for example, has like 4 beauty marks just like randomly on her. Unless you're really paying attention, you'll just never notice it. Like, again, only the concept art is like kind of the place you could see this. The live 2D art, by the way, insane. One of the best looking ones in the entire game. Just this character is just show-stopping. She is so gorgeous. We were joking about it yesterday on stream about the Legion of Doom, like the 7 hottest women in E7. I can confidently say that Peira, and probably this version of Peira, sits at that table as like these are the hottest girls in the game. So yeah, just kudos once again. Art department carries. Cannot wait to see all of the animations that this character has when we finally get a gameplay reveal trailer. Anyways, enough yapping, salivating over how gorgeous the character is. Let's talk about the character's stats and her kit. Lone Wolf Peira is a 5-star Dark Elemental Aquarius warrior. In case you don't know, that is the stat line of Lethe as well as Conqueror Lotus, meaning 121 base speed is the name of the game. She is fast enough to be in that 300 plus speed opener tier and has incredible defensive stats to boot. Roughly around 600 defense, around like 61 or 6200 HP. So very tanky for how fast you can get this character. Famously, I have played Conqueror Lilius at like 290 or 295 speed with about 1400 defense with like 23.5 HP. So very tanky stat line for how fast this thing can actually be. And when you see this kit and you realize how tanky and how fast this is, it's going to blow your mind, right? Again, before though I get into it, I got to point this out here at the bottom. The information displayed in this notice is subject to change. And honestly, they probably should change a couple of things, as you're about to see when we get into this in a second. So everything I'm going to talk about is not finalized. It could be made worse, stay exactly the same, or be made even better. But let's be honest, it's probably going to stay exactly the same. Absolutely insane kit, as you're about to see. Skill 1 is called Bash. Attacks the enemy with a 75% chance to decrease defense for 1 turn. So it is a defense break. A successful attack inflicts additional damage proportional to the caster's attack. This is essentially Requiem Rwana's S1. You get the defense break and then the little pop there at the end. That is already a fairly good skill 1. But the Soulburn here changes it to an AoE attack. This attack does not trigger a dual attack. So Soulburn is basically an AoE defense break. On a character that's at 300 plus speed, that's terrifying. That is essentially, like a Ran, right? It doesn't strip, but having the ability to just have your opener have an AoE defense break if you're not building immunity is very, very debilitating, right? And if you pair this with a character like Frida, there's no real way for you to stop the AoE defense break, right? You can't just bring Bellion into it. So immunity might be back on the menu, considering how strong this is for just a basic attack skill. Moving on to her passive here, Time to Rampage. It increases her evasion by 50%. Now, I just already explained that Conqueror latest stat line might be the tankiest stat line for how fast it is in the game, right? The only other one that's really in the conversation for this is the Harseti / New Moon Luna stat line. Like, those are pretty much like the tankiest stat lines you can play for how fast they actually are. Evasion massively increases your survivability. Most evasion units in Epic 7 history have around like 470 to like 520 defense, right? They are not particularly tanky. They maybe have like 5,000 and change HP. Peira has over 600 defense and 6k HP respectively. This character is going to be so obnoxiously difficult for you to kill with the evasion buff. The fact that it also has evasion means that it is nearly impossible to react to this like with somebody like Zio, right? Like you could try, it's a 50-50 shot, right? There's no clean way to deal with a 300 speed opener that has evasion outside of non-attack skills, and we'll talk about how that gets countered in the S3 in just a moment. Also, at the start of the turn, increases the attack of Lone Wolf Peira by 20%. Effect can stack up to 5 times. So if the game goes long enough, the defense break plus the pop, like the Requiem Rwana style S1, gets stronger, right? So this character has potentially, I wouldn't say 1v4 potential, but definitely has pretty good 1v1 potential in the super late game if the game goes that long. For how fast the character is for a utility opener, the fact that it has essentially a defense break with a pop on it that scales with the game gives her actual carry potential. At the end of the turn, increase the combat radius of all allies by 10%. There's no reason for this line of text. It's just here because F you. That's why, right? Like, we can all agree that a 300 speed opener that's this tanky with 50% evasion that gains inevitability if the game goes longer than 5 turns, that is already a good passive. You don't need, when your 300 speed character takes a turn, your whole team gets tempo. That is just like, that's a bridge too far. Like, you don't need that. Like, that, this feels like a line you added because you were afraid that the unit wouldn't sell. I promise you the unit would sell even without that line of text. This is just an absurd last line that's just tacked on for no reason. Skill 3, Hound of the Indolent. Dispels 2 debuffs from all allies before granting Rampage to Dark Elemental allies for 3 turns. Grants Swift Attack to all allies except for the caster. And if it's Awakened, which it will be at level 60, grants an extra turn to Peira. In case you forgot, Swift Attack is the buff that Ahmed, I believe, gives essentially at the end of your turn, you get 50% combat readiness. So characters that have 50% combat readiness on their skills already basically get a pseudo extra turn, barring things like Paladus, Abyssal Euphine, so on and so forth. And Rampage is a new undispellable buff that increases the evasion of that ally for 20% and also increases their speed by 20%. So Ahmed, a limited character, gave 1 swift attack. Peira gives 3 swift attacks to your team, and arguably the best version of the split undispellable buffs ever. I think Rampage is better than Enrage, it's better than Vigor, and it's better than Indomitable. I would rather have 20% evasion and 20% speed than having the 20% speed and attack or whatever from Enrage. I think that this thing is just really, really, really strong, right? And that's before we talk about the fact that you get just absolutely nuts tempo from the swift attack, right? You could have Bloodblade Corinne on your team, right? It could be her turn. She has swift attack, and there's nothing that you can kill with her S3 Blade Dragon. So instead, what you do is you just use Sequential Cutter, her S1, knock somebody's health down. Oh, she's 50% up the CR bar and in prime position to take a second turn, S3, and clean up everybody. This works for so many aggressive DPS. It is such a huge, huge tempo advantage for your entire team. And for your dark units on the team, they're going to be even faster, right? They're going to have the evasion. BBK, like in our example before, a lot of people will play Shepherd of the Hollow. That already gives evasion. So now your Veronicas and stuff, they're not going to be as consistent versus a Lone Wolf Peira team because you're going to have a 40% chance at evasion as opposed to a 20% chance at evasion. It's just going to make BBK teams even stronger, something that they didn't really need. And this is all before we go back to the fact that Hound of the Indolent, for whatever reason, dispels 2 debuffs from all allies. Now, when we take a look at the state of strong openers in the game, right? We have Harsetti. Obviously, that's going to be a fast character like Lone Wolf Peira. Peira players, they're just going to ban the Harsetti. Zio, you have 50% evasion at the start. They have to coin flip in order to not get run over by the tempo advantage that Peira generates. New Moon Luna is going to be faster, but she puts 2 debuffs on you. Then it's going to be Peira's turn. She uses Hound of the Indolent, cleanses out of it immediately, completely, answers all of the seals and unbuffables on the rest of your team. You don't have to worry about New Moon Luna if you have Lone Wolf Peira. Obviously, good matchup there for Peira. And then you start to think about other solutions after that, and it gets a bit more murky, right? Sea Phantom Paladus is the one that Peira doesn't really have a great answer to, except that Sea Phantom Paladus is 1 speed slower than Lone Wolf Peira, which means that it's just speed RNG. So when the only really reliably good opener, right, is going to be a Sea Phantom or a Hellion Lua that's just going to have to speed RNG it out with Peira, I would say it's a pretty busted opener, right? If all of the openers have to basically get lucky to beat the Peira, that's pretty telling, right? So this character is just going to be monstrously good, right? As an opener, because she just doesn't have great options to deal with her. She has incredible tempo granting options. And that's before we even talk about the fact that, again, for some stupid reason, this thing has an extra turn on it. Why does it have an extra turn on it? It's just another line of text that this thing just didn't need. I promise you, this character would have seen play without the extra turn. The only reason I think that this thing has an extra turn on Hound of the Indolent is because her S2 on the old Peira, the Claws, that thing had an extra turn, and they wanted to preserve the feel of Peira. This, you don't need this, right? Being able to counter every opener, plus give an insane tempo advantage with swift attack, plus also evasion and speed buff to your dark units, right? And the extra turn so that way you can soul burn and immediately death break the entire enemy team. Come on, you don't need that. That's that's just too ridiculous of an opener, right? As for how you build the character, it's a speed opener. So speed set plus any two other pieces. You could go speed broken set. Speed immunity is probably just like the stones, right? It's very hard, I feel like, for you to deal with. Like if you could buff stack the Peira in any way, right? That would just be ridiculous. Any artifact that you've seen on an Aquarius warrior be used to some success probably also works here, right? Border coin, music box, proof of valor, sweet miracle, spear of purification, warhorn, all that stuff worked on Conquer. It probably all works here on Lone Wolf Peira. Right now, as I'm seeing it, straight up triple S tier, top tier, must have character for anybody that plays fast in Epic 7. And honestly, considering how good Conquer Aurelius was for turn 2, it would not surprise me in the slightest if Lone Wolf Peira is ridiculous. Also, for you mid-range who turn 2 standard players, character's probably nuts there as well. Unfortunately, 2025 does not look like it's going to start off the same way as 2024. 2024 was, hey, all of our ML5s are broken except for the first one and the last one. 2025 came out the gate swinging with a character that is very clearly on the same tier as New Moon Luna, Empyrean Elanav, Harseti, etc., and in some cases might even be better than those characters. Yep, it's power creep Epic 7, baby. It's here to stay, it feels like. Yeah, if it's not obvious, pull the Peira, unless for some reason, like I said, the information displayed in this notice is subject to change. Hopefully, somebody out there, right, post on Stove, by the way, because apparently they only listen to Stove. If this character is like as good as I think it is, maybe they walk back things like the extra turn. Maybe they walk back the increased combat rate of all allies by 10%. This character's just busted. Anyways, I don't think I need to sell you guys and girls on how busted Lone Wolf Peira is anymore. Let's instead shift focus now and talk about the new exclusive equipments that were added for Blooming Litica, as well as Specimen Says. First up is Blooming Litica, right? This is a limited character that is currently on the banner as of the recording of this video. I know there are new players out there that are wondering, is it worth it to pick up Blooming Litica? She is a hard to use, hard to gear character, very niche for aggressive players, right? And now, because this is her actual first rerun, she will come back in the custom group summon the next time that comes around. That comes around usually 2 to 3 times a year. So if you want to skip her, you could probably do so, especially because of this exclusive equipment. I think it is fine, but it's not really amazing. Effectiveness is certainly usable for Blooming Litica, right? But the thing that she really needs is damage right now. Like health percentage might have been a little bit better for her health scaling. Otherwise, effectiveness, I think, is pretty much as good as it gets there. We're never going to give this character, I think, a speed EE. The first effect here is on Twirling Thorns. That is her S1. Removes 3 souls from the enemy when using Twirling Thorns. Anyone who has played Ambitious Tyrant knows that the soul draining effect on an S1 can be pretty potent. There's definitely some room for experimentation here, but I don't necessarily know if this is enough to make the character very, very good or a lot more usable. The next one is on Seductive Scent. Restricts all enemies for 2 turns when using Thorn Vine. That's fine, I guess. I guess it's meant to stop Ilanav, right? Empyrean Ilanav. But the thing is, Empyrean Ilanav already completely hoses Blooming Litica because of the penetration reduction. So I don't think this is it either. It's probably maybe a little bit more widely usable than the first one, but not something that feels amazing. And the last one is on Fruit of Ecstasy. Increases damage dealt on Fruit of Ecstasy by 10%. Might have been better if this was 20%. I think 10% might have been a little bit too low. The biggest complaint that people always have with Blooming Litica is that it's too difficult to get a kill, right, on Fruit of Ecstasy. So giving it a little bit of damage boost is what the character needed, but 10% doesn't feel like it might be impactful. The 10% one is almost never impactful. The only time I could think of a damage dealt increases EE being super impactful was Immortal Wukong's last time, and that was a 20% increase. I really would have liked to have seen a 20% increase. For those of you guys who do Blooming Litica cleave, let me know down in the comments below which one you'd go with. I think that the third one is probably the safest bet, but the S2 could be pretty good, and there's some interesting exploration to be done with the S1. Now, The big one, the better of the two exclusive equipments here, is definitely here on Says. This is Sealed Energy. It gives 14% attack. That's exactly what Says needed, because Says is an incredibly good aggressive / cleave character. The problem is that sometimes he just doesn't have enough attack, quite enough attack to get there. And this EE does exactly what he needs. 14% attack. Obviously going to be very, very helpful for this character. First exclusive equipment is on Dark Shadow. This is his S1. Increases the damage on his S1 by 20%. Like, this is definitely a sizable increase to the damage, but I don't think it's what the character needs. The other two are to his S2 passive, Die Hard, right? Which, by the way, please rename Die Hard. Like, it was called Die Hard because of the stuff that it used to have, but now it's, you know, they changed it a little bit. Doesn't have the stealth, so he's not super difficult to kill. So Die Hard feels like almost a misnomer. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Increases the attack of the caster for 2 turns when using an encroach. Perfect. Actually, perfect exclusive equipment for this character. Because again, attack wasn't quite there. You were relying on getting the attack buff or the greater attack buff from Alexa's basket in order to actually wrap up a fight. Having built-in attack buff on your encroach turn, which is what basically gives you the CR push to go for his S3 and get the cleave off. Yeah, getting a guaranteed attack buff means we don't need Alexa's basket anymore. We could play a damage increasing artifact like Wind Rider, for example, Symbol of Unity, whatever you got laying around, right? Literally perfect exclusive equipment for this character. This is exactly what the character needed. And the last one here increases the damage dealt on Encroach by 20%. It's fine, right? Encroach is pretty okay. It's not like an amazing AoE in terms of damage multipliers. This could be pretty good, but I think compared to attack buff on Encroach, it's nowhere near as good. This is, in my opinion, the better one, and I think Says is already pretty fringe to usable. I personally, as somebody who doesn't cleave a lot, think he's like one of the most fun characters to cleave with, and I think with this exclusive equipment, it really, really will help him out. You'll be able to use him a lot more frequently in things like Guild Wars and Flag Arena, and I expect to see at least a decent uptick of him in World Arena. This is a very, very good exclusive equipment. Starting the year off strong with at least one very good exclusive equipment, and one pretty busted Moonlight 5-star, if I do say so myself. Let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts on everything we discussed here in the video. Do you think that I'm right or wrong on these things? Any and all comments, would love to hear from you. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Later now.